new plants growing, but it was going to take some time. And so they were allowed to eat animals. Now it says here, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. That doesn't mean to say that this verse is contradicting what it says in Leviticus, where it talks about certain animals are considered unclean. Because remember, Noah knew what was clean and unclean because God made it obvious by only allowing 7 of the clean animals to show up and only 2 of the unclean animals to show up. So it was already clear to Noah which animals were clean versus unclean. The clean ones were allowed for sacrifice, and so that was cleared for Noah that those were the ones that he can eat. God would not backtrack later on in Leviticus and say, well, let me change it up and say these are only that, when I said everything, I meant only some things. Everything in terms of the context of the clean animals. So every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat flesh with its life. That is its blood. Because blood is where the life is. In other words, when you eat this food, don't eat it with the blood. Don't eat it while it's alive. And don't eat it while the blood is still there. Surely, for your lifeblood, I will demand a reckoning. If you do that, I will demand your blood. From the hand of every beast, I will require it, and from the hand of a man, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. In other words, when you eat food, you better make sure it's not something that's still alive. I mean, that's gross. Who would want to do that? But even when you eat something that's already killed, you want to make sure that the blood is still not there. A lot of people like their steaks and they want it, rare, right? And you could see the blood kind of still there, dripping. God's saying that is not his desire. It's saying that if you do that, I require your blood from you. It says, from the hand of man, and from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. So in other words, also, you don't want to mess with also other people. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For the image of God, he made man. In other words, let me reiterate that murder is not in my will. Since he was busy talking about blood, he's saying, don't shed the blood of other human beings. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply. We're doing the opposite. We're not trying to get rid of life. We're trying to continue life. Be fruitful and multiply and bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and his sons with him, saying, and as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. Thus I establish my covenant with you. What was this covenant? What was this alliance? What was this promise? It was, never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God gives them a promise that from now on, there will never again be a flood like this that will destroy the world. Not that there would never be another flood, but not a flood that will destroy the entire earth and destroy all flesh on the earth. God's desire was that this would never happen again. This was a one-time thing to kind of press the reset button on life on this planet. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. So this promise, by the way, is not just for human beings. God's promising this to also the animals, that God doesn't want to do this type of devastation again. What is the sign that he was going to use? Verse 13, I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. Today, if there's a big rainstorm and you see a cloud, if you look at the right angle with the light, you will see that there's a rainbow there. That rainbow was God's way of giving them a sign. It was for them to remember that God made a promise to them that he will not destroy the world with a massive flood again. That beautiful array of colors of light was something that many scientists would say, well, isn't that just a normal occurrence of what happens with rain? But remember, they never experienced rain before. And so before they saw that rainbow, which remember, God has created all physics and science and all the natural laws, but God knew that a rainbow would show up, and God said, whenever you see that rainbow, just know that should be a reminder to you that I'm never going to destroy this world again with a flood. Not that he would never destroy the world again, but never with a flood, because as we know from prophecy, that the world will be destroyed again, but not with a water flood. It says here, verse 15, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. The rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. You know, anytime you have a massive rainstorm, it's that rainbow that happens afterwards gives you a sense of peace. It's a beautiful image that you see. And it's God's way of encouraging us of the fact that he is there to protect us and the fact that he won't destroy the world again with a flood. And so God does this beautiful imagery for us. And now we read about the genealogy and the children of Noah. Verse 18, and the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And again, that's not the order of their age. That's kind of like the order of importance or emphasis. Because Shem will have the most emphasis, Ham will have the second most emphasis, and Japheth, he's kind of like a footnote. And Ham was the father of Canaan. We'll talk more about that guy, Canaan, in the next chapter. But he just wants to emphasize that Canaan, father of Canaan. These were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. Somewhere down the line, obviously time had passed because he had time to plant a vineyard. That vineyard was able to grow. He was able to take the grapes from the vines. He was able to ferment the grape juice and turn it into wine. And now he became drunk after drinking it. And he got so drunk, Noah was having a party inside of his tent where he was, moving around all naked and stuff. Even though time had passed, it wasn't that much time that now, corruption started to kind of go back, even with Noah himself, the guy who was said to be perfect without blame. But here he was getting drunk on wine, walking around his tent all naked. He was really, for you to go naked, you're really drunk. And so he was drunk, naked, and it says here that he was naked, uncovered in his tent, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. Now, this is clearly not something where he just like, oops, there wasn't something just like that. He was looking, or he was watching his father naked. Disturbing to do that. It wasn't like Ham didn't have a wife or anything, but somehow he got, there was a perversion there, and he decided to stare and watch his dad in his nakedness. So much so that Ham went and told his two brothers, "You got to check this out. Our dad is naked. You should really take a look at this." Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it on both of their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away and did not see their father's nakedness. They didn't want to look at that. Who on earth wants to look at their dad naked? Shem and Japheth were not interested in that, and so they walked into that tent backwards and with some sort of cloth and covered Noah so that he wouldn't be exposed anymore. That wasn't Ham's plan, but Shem and Japheth, they were not interested in checking out their naked dad. So it says, so Noah awoke from his wine. At that point, Noah was already like knocked out, so drunk. Eventually, he woke up and knew what his younger son had done to him. See, to him. It wasn't just an accident. When you do something to somebody, it's not an accident. This is something that was intentional that Ham did, something that was perverted that Ham did. Noah knew. Even though he was drunk, he knew enough that it's like, wait a minute, weren't you checking me out a while ago? Then he said, cursed be Canaan. Canaan. Canaan means to be humbled. And that really is humbled. So now Noah is cursing his son's son. Cursed be Canaan. I told you some time had passed. A servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. And he said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Shem. And may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be his servant. Some people might look at this and say, well, this doesn't seem right. Noah was in the wrong. Noah should not have been getting drunk, prancing around all naked. Well, why is now he cursing not Ham, but Ham's son? Why would he do that? Well, remember, it's your lineage means a lot to you. And so that curse saying that your son is going to end up being the servant, will have to serve or be the slave of his relatives, of their cousins. I mean, that was a big blow to Ham. Shem will be blessed. Japheth will have big family, enlarged. But as for you, Ham, your son will be the servant. A lot of times when it comes to curses in the Bible, it's more of a consequence more than anything else. You see, you as a parent, if you have the wrong lifestyle, that will affect your children. Now, you might say, well, that's not fair. That's true. Life isn't fair. Your child never asks you to make your mistakes, but you better believe that your mistakes will affect your children, and may even affect their children, and may even cause a generational cycle of terribleness. Well, verse 28, and Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Lived pretty long there, but he still died. Now, this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons were born to him after, and sons were born to them after the flood. So that's important. Some people think that Canaan was born in the ark, like in the movie Noah. No, it wasn't. It says all the sons were born after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Magdi, Javan, Tubal, Meshesh, and Tirzas. Now, what do those names mean? Gomer means complete. Magog means mountain land. Magdi means middle land. That's where you find the Medes, like the Medes and Persians. Javan, which means wine, where you find the people of Greece. Tubal, which means thou shalt be brought, which is where you find Cappadocia. Meshesh, which means drawing out, which is north of Israel. And Tiraz, which means desire. The sons of Gomer now, one of the sons of Japheth was Gomer. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. What do those mean? Ashkenaz means a man as sprinkled fire. That's in the northern part. The Riphath, which means spoken, and Togarmah, which means thou wilt break her. The sons of Javan were, now that was another one of the children of Japheth. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. What do those mean? Elisha, which means God is God of the coming one. Tarshish, you've heard of like Tarshish or Tarsus. Yellow jasper. Kittim, which means bruiser. Dodanim means leaders. From these, the coastland peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations. Now, again, the Bible likes talking general and gets more specific a little bit later. So I know the Bible's mentioning how people were separated by their languages and families, but we'll learn about that later on in the next chapter of how that split ended up happening. But it's talking general right now. Again, that was all of Japheth. And again, that's why he was mentioned last, because he has the least amount of emphasis. Very few were mentioned. Now let's focus on Ham. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Puth, and Canaan. Remember we mentioned about Canaan before? Now, what does those mean? Cush means black. Mizraim means dual trench, is where you get the Egyptians. Puth means a bow, which is northern Africa. Canaan, which means humbled or subdued or subjected, are the people that are west of Jordan. Interesting. This is these people of Ham, as you can see, a black, Egyptian, northern Africa, west of Jordan. Now, I want to mention something here, because a lot of people go and say, well, you see right there, God cursed the black people. Now, God, or should I say Noah, cursed Canaan. If he was going to curse all black people, he would have cursed Ham. But he only cursed Canaan. Cush name meant black. Canaan just simply means humbled. Mizraim was the Egyptians. Puth was from northern Africa. So it wasn't just like, okay, all black people are cursed. That is a very twisted view on scripture. Now, there was a lineage, not all of Ham's lineage was cursed, but a part of his lineage was cursed, which was the people of Canaan, of Canaan, where you have the Canaanites and things like that. And so again, I just wouldn't go so far to say that all black people are cursed, which clearly not. Uh, Later on, when you read about Moses, right, and you have his wife Zipporah, who we know was a black woman, we know that God cursed Miriam and Aaron because of their racism towards her. And they said, "Well, you want people to be white? Well, I will make you white with leprosy." Because they were racist against Zipporah. So God has nothing against color. He had something against the perversion that Ham had, which part of his lineage received the repercussions of. So I just wanted to address that briefly. So now let's talk about one of the sons, Cush. Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod, by the way, means rebellion or valiant. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. By the way, this word kingdom is the first time that we read this word kingdom here in the Bible. Never before is the word kingdom mentioned, and is mentioned in regards to Babel. Other places it translates that word Babel as a Babylon. Nimrod started the kingdom of Babylon. Kingdom is not something that was the will of God. Just like our cities had an evil origin, kingdoms have an evil origin. But just like with cities, God can bring something good and he will make a new city. Just like with that, although kingdoms have an evil origin, God will make a new kingdom. He says, my kingdom is not of this world, right? But God will create a new kingdom. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Babel, by the way, means confusion. Confusion, or mixing up, or mixed up. Babel. Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Erech, which means long, and that city was long. It was a 40-mile long city near Babylon, near left of the Euphrates River. Akkad, which means subtle, which was a city in region in North Babylonia. Calneh, which is a fortress of Anu. Anu is the god of the sky. So now they have these false gods. And it's all in the land of Shinar, which means the country of two rivers, which is dealing with Babylonia or Chaldea, like the Chaldeans, right? Remember Daniel had to learn the language of the Chaldeans. So this is the origin here. From that land, he went to Assyria. So first he established Babylonia. Then he extended and he went to Assyria and built Nineveh and Rehoboth and Kala. What does that mean? Assyria means a step forward. Nineveh, doesn't Nineveh sound familiar? Isn't that the place where Jonah was supposed to go? That is the abode of Ninus. That's the capital of Assyria, 250 miles north of Babylon. So that, Nimrod is really expanding his kingdom. And Rehoboth means wide places or streets, kind of like we would say Broadway. Kala, which means vigor, and Resin, which means bridles. And so it says in verse 12, and Resin between Nineveh and Kala. And that is the principal city. Now, going back to the lineage, Mizraim begot Ludim. Mizraim begot Ludim, Anamim, and Lehabim, Nephtaim, Patharsim, and Calcim, from whom came the Philistines and Capharthim. Those people, Ludim, to the firebrands or travailings, Anaim, which means affliction of the waters, Lahabim, which means flames, Naphtim, which means openings, Patharsim, which means the south region, the Casalim, which means fortified. And again, it says they're coming from, later on, they became the Philistines and the Capharthim, which Philistines means immigrants or sojourners. I wonder if the Philistines called themselves Philistines, calling themselves immigrants. I'm sure that was what the people of Israel called them. By the way, the children of Israel are not in existence yet, by the way. This is just giving us the origin of all these people. And the Catharim, which means a crown. Now, Canaan, remember, those are the people that were cursed. Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, which means fishing or fisher. His firstborn, and Heth, which means terror. The Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgashite, the Hivite, the Archite, and the Sinite, the Avidite, the Semirite, and the Hamathite. These people, if you look, especially during the time of David, these people were really like the enemies of God. They truly were the cursed group. Afterwards, the family of the Canaanites were dispersed. So who are all these ites? The Jebusites, the Hittites, and all those people. Hivites. Well, Jebusites, threshing place. Amorite, a speaker. Girgashite, dwelling on a clay and soil. Hivite, meaning villagers. Archite, meaning gnawing. Sinite, which means thorn or clay. Arvadite, I shall break loose. Zemarite, double woolens. Hamathite, which means fortress. So continuing on here. So the Canaanites were dispersed. Verse 19, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon as you go towards Gerar, as far as Gaza. Gaza, remember that's the place where Samson, the Philistines were, Samson went to, as far as Gaza. Then as you go towards Sodom, Gomorrah, whoa, those are bad places. Admah and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These were the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands and in their nations. Now, and the children were also born to Shem. Remember, Shem was the one that was mentioned first. Then Ham. Ham was given the second emphasis because Ham did a bad thing. Now, but most of the emphasis was given on Shem, not because he was the oldest, but because of the reasons here. And the children were born also to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder. Japheth was the oldest. That's why it's called Japheth the elder. Eber, by the way, Eber means region beyond. All right. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Those people, Elam meaning eternity. Asher, a step forward, very similar, the same word as as we mentioned before, which was Assyria. Arphaxad failed at breastfeeding. What a terrible name. Poor guy. Had to live with that as his name. You failed at breastfeeding. Lud, meaning strife. Aram, meaning exalted. The sons of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Salah. Gether and Mash. Those people, Uz meaning wooden. Remember the land of Uz, right? Uz meaning wooden. Hul meaning circle. Gether meaning fear. Mash meaning drawn out. Aphodax, which the guy who couldn't latch on, begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. Remember we talked about Eber. So Salah sprout. To Eber were born two sons. The names of one was Peleg. And for in his days, the earth was divided, because Peleg means division. And so during his days, the earth was divided. And we're going to read about the division of the earth in a moment. And his brother's name was Joktan, meaning smallness. Joktan begot Almodad, Shelef, Hazarmaveth, and Jarah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Orphir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. Man, Shem has a lot of kids. All those are of Joktan. So those people, Almadad, not measured. Shelef, drawing forth. The next guy, Hazarmareveth, village of death. Jerah, new moon. Hadoram, noble honor. Uzal, I shall be flooded. Dikla, palm grove. Obal, stripped bare. Abimael, my father is God. Sheba, a perfect oath. Ophir, reducing to ashes. Verse 30. And in their dwelling, oh yeah, and Havel, which means circle, and Jobab, a desert. All right, so verse 30. And their dwelling place was from Misha as you go towards Sephir, the mountain of the east. These were the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. And again, we're going to read about how they all split up. These were the families of the sons of Noah, according to their generations and in their nations. And from these, the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Now that it gave us that big general concept, now let's back up to this time where we're going to see how it was all divided. Chapter 11. Now, the whole earth had one language and one speech. Now, last chapter we just read about all these different languages. But at this point, before all this, it had one language and one speech. They all were together there. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east. By the way, notice how it says from the east. In the Bible, east was always something where salvation was from. Remember, east of Eden and all that stuff. But now they're journeying from the east. As they're getting further and further away from Eden, as they're getting further and further away, become more and more corrupt. It's like, didn't God just press the reset button? Didn't God already destroy the world with a flood? It didn't take too long for the world to kind of spiral out of control again. As they journeyed from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar. Remember, that was the Babylon area. And they dwelt there. Remember, Nimrod had made himself a kingdom in Shinar, Babylon. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had bricks for stone. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So he's saying, let us all come together. Let us all unite together. Let's create a kingdom so powerful that we won't be scattered around. Let us all come together. God has says, go and fill the whole earth. But he says, no, let us put it all together, all in one spot. We'll have enough space because we're going to build up. We're going to build the world's very first skyscraper. Again, bad origins. God wanted them to spread outwardly, horizontally, but they wanted to spread vertically. Let's all stick together. We won't grow out. Let's grow up. Let's grow up to heaven. Let's build a tower all the way to heaven, all the way to the sky. Or else we'll be scattered throughout all the earth. But the Lord came down to see the city, Babylon, and the tower which the sons of men had built. The Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they have one language. And this is what they begin to do. You know, the people were one. Being one, being united, isn't always a good thing. Just because you are one and united, it doesn't mean anything unless you're united to do what is right. These people were united to do something that was wrong. They wanted to extend their kingdom. They had already increased from Babylon to Assyria, 250 miles. Their kingdom was expanding. But no, let's make it bigger. Let's go up. They wanted to reach into heaven. They wanted to create some massive structure. Maybe they were thinking, what happens if God tries to create another flood? Maybe if we're high enough, it won't reach us. Who knows what their rationale was? But God saw them, that they were united for this wickedness, far from Eden, and this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they purpose to do will be withheld from them. God realizes, and God says that they are all united with one language. They won't be stopped. They will continue to do this until they reach their goal. Now, to me, this is fascinating, their ability to be able to build such a huge infrastructure that God said that they were going to make it. They were going to make it to the top of the sky. They were going to keep going until they couldn't go no further, which they would have probably hit that in between spot before hidden space. They would have kept on going up, 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 taller than any building that we have today. God knew that it was possible. The people were so united. Now, to me, that fascinates me because you try to build a building today, it takes forever, right? If you try to build something like the Freedom Tower, look how long that took, right? And that's huge. But these people were able to build a structure so massive, so powerful, they would have kept on going. Now, think about it. These people lived for a long time. Now, imagine the education these people had. We think of the people back then as just being barbaric. But think about how brilliant these people were. These people are not very far in terms of length of time from the creation, where the people's minds were perfect and the minds were not bombarded with all types of messed upness. These people, not only were they able to have that type of life, but they were able to live long. They were able to pass on information from generation to generation. They were able to pass on information. Their teacher could be from generations ago, like 5 generations ago. They were able to pass on information so well to each other. They were able to build on that information on each other as building blocks. And also, they did not have the barrier and the obstacle of languages. They all had the same language. They all were able to live long. They were all able to put their minds together, and they were all united with one goal, which was to build this Tower of Babel. God knew that if he allowed them to continue, they would have accomplished their task. What? How advanced were these people back then? And so it says here, nothing will be withheld of them. Verse 7, come, let us go down. And again, that once again, that shows us that God is plural. God is not talking to himself. He says among themselves, come, let us go down. And there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. I imagine this moment as they're building this massive structure, that as they're building, one guy starts talking to the next guy, thinking that he's speaking in common language, and doesn't realize that all of a sudden his language is now switched. And instead of saying, hey, pass the bricks, what? And that guy responds and saying, I have no idea what you're saying, but instead he's like, what? And all the people start talking to each other, and they're all trying to communicate, and it's just mass confusion that's going down at that place. And everybody's like, what is happening? How come we don't understand everybody? Has everybody lost their mind? And it says here, verse 8, so the Lord scattered them abroad from over the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city that was going to be vertical. They stopped building this city. Well, later on, we know, in the book of Daniel, that city was complete, not vertically, but some people picked up that city and continued building. But the people, because they could no longer get along, because their languages were all different, they all decided to split up. And so eventually, as they're talking, and finally they found one person, they realized that they understood each other and like, let's get together and let's go somewhere. So all the people who understood the same language got together and moved away together. And that's why the Bible mentions all these different families coming from the different lineages of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And they all split up, and they all had different languages, and they all lived in different territories. Nimrod and his people continued to live in the land of Babylon. They were scattered, but they stopped building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel. Remember, Babel means confusion or mixed up. And the people were really mixed up because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Wow. Unfortunately, God, after the flood, he already made a promise that he was not going to destroy the world. But the world was going so fast down its spiral of sin that God had to do something. And so what God had to do was create multiple languages. Still to this day, languages divide us. Languages is the curse of sin, the curse of rebellion, as Nimrod's name meant. The fact that there are people of different nationalities and things like that living in different places was never the plan of God. God wanted everybody to be cohesive, and while we spread around the world, he didn't want it to be that all one race would be one place, one race would be that, one language would be in one place. It was never God's will for that to happen. But when the world was so united to do evil, God knew that the world could not be united ever again. And the world will never be united. We always talk about, why can't we all just get along? Come on, man. Peace, man. We all want to get together. But it's never going to happen. You see, this kingdom of this world can never be united again, because if we are united, we will do evil. but God will set up a new kingdom, a new city, a city that will not go up, but a city that's going to come down. It's going to come down to us because God is going to establish his city on this earth and make this earth his kingdom once again. And we can be part of his people. And if we're part of his people, we're part of this city, then we can enjoy that moment with him. Matter of fact, let's read that right now. I know we've been talking about Genesis, but let's take a little glimpse at the future in Revelation. 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 While Genesis is talking about the origins, Revelation is talking about the destinations. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, it says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. You see, as I mentioned earlier, they were building this city and God went and visited them. But now God will no longer visit this earth. He's moving into this earth. He'll be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things, they've passed away. Then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the Genesis and the Revelation. I will give of the water, give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my child. That's God's desire. And although we're reading about all these genealogies, about different children of different parents, all of us can be considered a child of God if we overcome this world, overcome the test of this world. Put your trust in God. Allow him to come down into our lives, and rather than raising us up to be like God. Bring him down into our life, and he will lift us up. We'll pause here in the story, and we'll continue where we left off next week, where we see the genealogy stretch out to a next main character in the book of Genesis. We'll cover that next week, Wednesday. Father God, I thank you so much that we could take a moment to look at this intermediate period after Noah, where we read about how wickedness still was out of control, despite this whole event of the flood. Unfortunately, God, we are so prone to evil. We're so prone to rebellion. But you have a plan on how to take this world and bring us to something new. You have a plan to restore order to this massive confusion. I pray this all, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you guys so much for coming. Next week, Wednesday, we'll pick it up right here in the middle of this chapter, and we'll continue on.